I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, September the 22nd, brought to you in part by Livestock Risk Services. They're your LRP specialists with Dakota Moss, and I'm excited because tonight, here on Thursday night, got an appointment to have dinner with Dakota Moss. Going to get to shake hands with him and talk about livestock risk services and all the advantages you can get with having an LRP on your cattle, especially your backgrounded cattle, and growing more so on you cow-calf producers that would like to lock in the price on your calves. Because if you look out there, there's pretty handsome lock-in prices on your calves. But Livestock Risk Services is adding several new agents in and around the state of Oklahoma, which is a pretty centralized place. They are licensed in about half the states in the union, including all your major cattle production areas. So if you're interested in livestock risk protection, get a hold of Livestock Risk Services. Interest rates matter. And probably for the most part of the last 20 years, money's been cheap. People haven't worried too much about interest, and they've just went ahead and bought cattle and tried their luck at them. But buying cattle, running cattle out, feeding cattle, that's an investment. Piss poor investment in a lot of cases, but it costs money to do those things. Some people already have the money, but now we have opportunity costs of what they could do with that money because the interest rate is rising. And for the people, most people that are borrowing money to run those cattle or feed those cattle, it's getting more expensive just to borrow that money. The Fed raised interest rates, your prime rate, 75 percentage points, 0.75 percentage of a point. Went from 2.5 to 3.25 on your prime rate, and they're planning on going to at least 4.5 as a target over the next couple of months here. That's getting pretty significant, guys. We've been running here, like I said, for the last 20 years where your interest rates for ag loans have been below 6%. Now they're mostly above 6%. That starts to get in your knickers pretty soon, guys. And if you look, and not always when you're running cattle do you keep them a whole year, but 6% wouldn't be a bad return on your investment, guys, when you're running cattle. For a fat steer that's done 6% would be $130 or more. And for the most part, we're not making that much money on cattle. So we've got to figure in that interest rate. And a lot of big outfits continue to feed cattle because they've got a lot of equity, but they're burning up their equity. And with our really safe investments working towards 3%, maybe they'd rather just sit on the bench and let their money work for them. But like I said, over the last 20 years, the money hasn't been worth a lot. So what the heck, let's throw some money at this and see what we get done. But with inflation running in the 8% range here, pretty much since the Magoo administration started, they've got to do something to try to get this inflation under control. Raising interest rates is about the only way that you can do it. It just costs more to do everything. I know several people, I got several friends who are in the real estate, in the mortgage sales business. Their business has slowed down to a halt. Nobody's buying property and homes and things like that, flipping them, thinking it's not going to cost them very much money to put their money into that property because it's just not moving like it used to. Everything costs more. You go to buy a new pickup, they don't have any pickups on the lot. You got to order one, which means you're going to pay at least sticker price or maybe 10% over, and that pickup's getting pretty damn high. Now you still see them running, low interest rates or maybe 0% interest. Well, they're just inflating the cost of the product and they're getting it back that way. But, we've basically been in a recession here for the last several months, although they keep moving the historical definition of a recession. But, this economy sucks. And it just makes me think about the guys that were operating and running cattle before my time, back in the late 70s and the 80s when I was just a kid. They had interest rates up around 18%. And the guys looking back now say, we were screwed before we started. And, if we would have had that money, of course they didn't have the money, they were borrowing the money, but there was very, very slim chance of even being able to pay that interest off, let alone make any money to try to, increase the equity in their operation. But don't think these interest rates don't matter. And it's going to get to the point where some people, especially older people, which is the bulk of our cattle production people, they're going to think, you know what, I think I'm just going to sit back and let my money work for me rather than fighting this all the time and burning through my equity. But it's something you got to keep an eye on, guys, and it's going to continue to get higher. And it's kind of scary when you're thinking about people investing in the cattle business. Your screen is not lying to you. I have changed over to the felt hat, and I think it's getting pretty close to time, guys. Everybody's got their views on when you should change to a felt hat from a straw hat. I talked to guys that used to be in Omaha at the stockyards, and they always said the first day after Labor Day, when you came back, they would have a burning 55-gallon drum there, would help those people find a place to put their straw hat whenever it come fall time. But there's not any set rules. The only rule that I have, which I learned from my father, and he was a hard guy on rules like that. He was a big Western heritage preservationist. He said that when you just don't wear a felt hat with a short sleeve shirt, and you never wear a straw hat with a coat. That pretty much takes care of it. That helps guys throughout the region. I know there's guys in South Texas that barely wear a felt hat because they don't need a coat that often, and they want short sleeves more often. But here in the Texas Panhandle, starting to get cool at nights, cool in the mornings. I don't really want to wear a short sleeve shirt anymore, but I might want a jacket. For you guys further north, you've probably already changed, but take pride whenever when you wear a cowboy hat, because it means something. It means something to people that don't know anything about what we're doing and need to pay attention to those things. Let's talk about your board on Wednesday. October live cattle futures down 42 cents at 145.87. December was down 32 cents at 150.75. Your back months on live cattle down 10 cents to down 40 cents. But if you go all the way out to the last traded month, which is February of 2024, it was up 17 cents. So they're thinking long term, cattle market's going to be better, and everybody's been thinking that. But, it's getting about time that we ought to start seeing some of these rewards being reaped here. But your February 24 live cattle contract sitting at 164.47. You guys still got to show me where cash fats are bringing 150, and I can't wait till you do. Feeder cattle contract September was down 62 cents at 178.17. October down 80 at 179.22. Your back months on feeder cattle mostly down 40 to down 95, but you go way out to the last traded month, which is August of 23, and they were up 57 cents, sitting over $2 a pound. Again, long term, everybody thinks the cattle business is going to be good, but isn't it high time we start trying to get there? Talk about your grains. Corn, Chicago Board of Trade futures down 6.5 cents at 685.5. Beans were down 17.5 cents at 14.67. Talk about your fat cattle trade. We have really yet to establish a cash price for fat cattle this week, and we're seeing just dwindling numbers of pure negotiated cash sales. That's why I keep fighting for this Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act to preserve what little negotiated cash trade we have. But the packers are not too aggressive this week. They're wanting to slow down their change speeds. They're wanting to boost the box beef cutout values, and they haven't gotten real aggressive on buying cattle. I'm talking to some feeders down here in the Southern Plains, and they're talking about it's getting kind of hard to get rid of all their show lists. Even some corporate type feeders are having a hard time getting rid of their show lists, those that they don't have all on a formulated deal. But Of course, on Wednesday, Colorado is confidential. We never get to find out what's going on there because they don't have enough, involvement in the negotiated trade. Iowa, 1,600 is all for confirmed sales on Wednesday, only 4,200 for the week. Live sales in Iowa all at 145, which is towards the top end of last week's trend. It would be over the weighted average from last week, even in the northern plains. Dress sales 226 to 232. We haven't seen 232 for quite a while. That'd be $2 better than the highest price we saw dress last week. Nebraska, just 1,800 head confirmed on Wednesday, only 2,100 head for the week. A lot of work to do out there, guys. Live sales in Nebraska on Wednesday from 143 to 145. Dress sales only at 226. Kansas and Texas have not traded a hoof. And I tell you what, we're getting at a standoff right here. How short bought are the Packers? We know they're fairly short. Can they just get by on their captive supplies? That's when we're at the end of our rope, guys. When weekly they can just get by on their captive supplies and they don't have to establish a cash price every week. We're done, guys. That's why I continue to fight for this Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act. It would set a minimum percentage of the week's kill that your major packers would have to buy in a negotiated basis. Box beef cutout values were down again, down hard on choice, down 251 on Wednesday afternoon at 249.13. Select down $1.09 at 226.14. Your slaughter running at a pretty good pace this week, although we're expecting a lighter slaughter, probably because they'll cut back even more on the Saturday kill, which has not been great this year so far anyway. But 382,000 cattle harvested so far this week up through Wednesday. That's 3,000 more than last week, 21,000 more than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Farmington Regional Stockyards in Farmington, Missouri. That's going towards southeast Missouri. That is an up-and-coming market with new ownership in the last few years, and they are building that market, and they're building it in the right way. They've got the FRS pre-vac program. Over the last 3 years, there's been over 40,000 cattle enrolled in that program, and they're getting along really well. If you guys are in southeast Missouri, somewhere around Farmington Regional Stockyards, get in touch with them at Farmington Regional and get your cattle enrolled in that program. They definitely bring a premium, guys. Cow sales season is getting ready to start here at Farmington Regional Stockyards in Farmington, Missouri. October 1st is their first big cow sale. They've got early consignments, including 90 head of spring herd dispersal there. Be some really top quality cattle there. They've got some fancy fall calving bred heifers and first calf heifer pairs coming up. That first sale, they're expecting 350 to 400 plus cows there at Farmington Regional Stockyards in Farmington, Missouri. Talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Wednesday sitting at 177.57. That was up $1.43, mainly because you remember last week on Wednesday was our big down day. Your markets last week were kind of down to start the week, down hard middle of the week, and then kind of come back. We're still down compared to the previous week, late in the week last week. But it's a 7-day moving average. We get rid of those prices from last Wednesday. We had some pretty good sales in some high volume markets this Wednesday, and your real-time index is up a little bit. Talk about your big sales on Wednesday. OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, just 4,900 head. A year ago, they had 7,400 head. But, the availability of cattle out there is just lighter, guys, and we are lighter in all classes of cattle. That's why we're due for long-term higher prices. But in El Reno at OKC West, feeder steers sold $2 to $4 higher. Feeder heifers were steady to $4 higher. Steer calves mostly $3 higher, but heifer calves steady to $2 lower. But had a stick-out sale on some feeder steers there in El Reno. 232 head of 793-pound steers, bring 184 1/4. How about winter livestock in Dodge City, Kansas? 3,400 head, good run for them. Feeder steers, $2 to $6 higher, and that tells me that your northern interests have got in. They mostly want to feed steers, and they'll get in and then ruffle the feathers on your regular buyers that are buying feeder steers. But $2 to $6 higher, that's an impressive trend for this week out of a big feeder cattle auction. Feeder heifers $1 to $5 higher. Steer calves $5 to $10 higher. Guys are getting in there buying their wheat cattle, although in that area of Kansas, and western Kansas has been really dry. Western Oklahoma has been fairly dry too. Down here in the Texas Panhandle, we had some good moisture when they planted that wheat, and the guys that went ahead and got it in when they were supposed to around Labor Day, they've got a good stand on their dryland wheat, good 5 or 6 inch stand on there, but it's starting to get light green and it needs a drink, guys. We need to get some moisture down here in the southern plains. But a stick out sale in Dodge City, Kansas was 82 steers, weighed 879 at $180. Give a couple individual quotes. How about Torrington Livestock Markets in Torrington, Wyoming? They sold 250 steers, weighed 906 at $182. How about Platte Livestock Market in Platte, South Dakota? They sell 60 head of 958-pound steers at $184.5. Another market there that had a really good sale on Wednesday was Bloomfield Livestock Market in Bloomfield, Iowa. The Schooley family there, look at this automated marker report through Cattle Market Central from DV Auction. You see your best tested weights. 205 head of 6-weight steers averaged 647 with a weighted average price of $191.12. 253 head of 7-weight steers averaged 753 at $186.68. 423 head of 8-weight steers averaged 841 with a weighted average price on all those 8-weight steers of $177.15. Pretty respectable. How about heifers? 398 head of 6-weight heifers averaged 642 with a weighted average price of $182.26, and 458 head of 7-weight heifers averaged 745 at $176.08. Talk about your Zoetis stick out sale of the day. Can't be surprised, it's Bassett Livestock Auction in Bassett, Nebraska. 3,300 head there. Last test was 2 weeks ago, and just like the market's been, it was steady to $6 lower. People think that Bassett Livestock Auction is higher every week. Well, cattle would be bringing, $20 a pound now. It goes with the market too. It's just a premium market and it sells on the top side. Look at this automated market report out of Bassett Livestock Auction. You see 100 head of 6-weight steers averaged 666 with a weighted average price of $200.37. 257 head of 8-weight steers averaged 839 at $185.85, and 1,171 head of 9-weight steers averaged 949 at $183.07. That's a good $5-6 higher than your index prices on an 800-pound steer. Look at your heifers. 433 head of 8-weight heifers averaged 855 with a weighted average price of $172.38, and 392 head of 9-weight heifers averaged 941, weighted average price $166.59. But the best and most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Wednesday in your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day come out of Hub City Livestock in Aberdeen, South Dakota. DV Auction broadcast customer there. Grass steers, 61 head of them, weighed 1,018 pounds at $184. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.